I grew up in Laurel, Mississippi. I grew up in rural, racially segregated Mississippi. We lived about 7 or 8 miles out of town. The population of 23,000. But my high school principal had graduated from Tuskegee. He didn't ask me, but he told me, "You are going to Tuskegee." And it just happened that my high school principal's son is my best friend. He plays Alpha at Tuskegee, and when he finished, he told me, "You are going to be an Alpha." And it was only comments like that that made me Alpha inclined, because if you want to know the truth, I didn't know too much about any of the others. But I graduated from Tuskegee. I was going there. I graduated from high school in 58, 62. I met all the requirements for graduation from Tuskegee. And from there, I ended up going into the military as a military police officer in Albuquerque. And that's where I became introduced to Omega Psi Phi. I was a military police officer working on the base, and there was an African American sergeant from Mobile, Alabama. Every day he came through my post, he would invite me to come to an Omega meeting. And I would respond by saying, "Well, I was Alpha inclined." But this went on for 2 years. For 2 years, he asked me to join Omega. And I told him no for 2 years. After about entering the first part of the 3rd year, I finally said to him, "I'll come to a meeting." I had been to several meetings with the Alphas at Tuskegee. I went to a meeting, one, and I decided Omega was the way for me.
What was it in the meeting that happened that kind of caused you, especially being Alpha inclined, having best friends as Alphas, that's a lot of outside influence, but what made you make that decision?
It just really felt like the right thing to do, because at Tuskegee, I absolutely had no interest in any fraternity except Alpha Phi Alpha. You know, and I went to this one meeting, and there were some military officers and all that at this meeting that I was thoroughly impressed by. Yeah, and we were introduced to different programs and things like that Omega Psi Phi would be doing, and what we were going to be doing. And because of the profession of these men, all of whom I believe were military, close there too. Mainly military. That's the way it happened. I said yes, and they after some time took us into the conference room of a bank on Central Street, I believe the bank was, and the rest is history.
Now, what were some of the programs back then when you first crossed and came through? What were some of the programs that you remember doing?
I did not work in the chapter in Albuquerque very long, because I left the city. I was discharged from the military shortly after joining. So my work in Omega Psi Phi would not take place in Albuquerque. So what happened while I was in service, I was accepted to law school at Howard University. So that's how I got to DC. So when I got to DC, that's when I really became involved as an Omega man.
When you got to DC, how did you end up finding the chapter? What was that like?
Through inquiry with brothers whom I had met, some of whom were like personal friends and that. And at Howard and in DC, opportunities present themselves to you. I had a degree in English at that time, and I became a school teacher in Washington, D.C. Becoming a school teacher led me to other arenas in D.C., and I became Dean of Pledges in Washington, D.C., and we had a fraternity house, which was something new for me. I had never seen anything like that in my life. You want to talk about what it is that caused me to want to be an Omega. My interest in youth, my interest in scholarships. I am a retired high school principal. I think there's nothing in this world, in my mind, greater than helping young people get through school. Like my brother, Dr. Wilson, is also a college administrator. You know, I mean, we live and dream helping people. I am retired, but I will do anything for students, anytime. I go to workshops now, college workshops, so that I can provide scholarships to my Dr. Jam kids.
Okay, right.
Get my Dr. Jam program.
Yeah, talk about that.
Provide scholarships to those young people and support that Dr. Jam program that my chapter, Phi Omicron, thought enough of me to name the tutoring program in my honor. I was a disciple of Dr. King starting at Tuskegee. When I went to Tuskegee in 1962, Dr. King came to Tuskegee and presented a rally trying to get college people involved in voting, of course, and trying to break down racial discrimination and all of that. And it was a constant process, and that's how I got started. I've been in the civil rights marches. This is when we were trying to get the buses integrated, which they finally got them integrated. But then my mother told me I couldn't sit in the front of the bus. She didn't care what the law was. I would not sit in front of the bus. I said, yes, Mama, but I sat in front of the bus.
Okay.
My mother doesn't know to this day I didn't obey that.
That's right.
I sat in the seat right behind the driver, and I told the driver, if anything happens to me, you're responsible for my safety. San Diego Unified was hiring black and brown teachers. They didn't have them. The kids had walked out of the classes, and they say, we're not going back to class unless you hire black and brown teachers. So San Diego Unified was in DC recruiting teachers. Oh. That's how I ended up in San Diego. Came in 1969. My whole life changed when I became an Omega. It really did, because I always wanted to be in the Greek organizations. When I was at Tuskegee, I wanted to be a Greek for the wrong reasons. I wanted to be one because that's who had the parties and that's who they followed. You know, and that was my main motivation. I didn't know about programs. I wasn't asking about programs. I never knew that Omega did a lot of those things they did because that was not my interest. My interest was in the social life. Remember, I'm 18 years of age. This is the first time I've ever been away from home in my life. First time I've ever had to do things for myself. You know, because my mother didn't allow me to do a lot of things like cook. She wouldn't let me wash the dishes. My father walked in the kitchen, that means Mama had to go and fix him some food. If he just walked in there, you know. And when I go to Tuskegee, I got to do all of that for myself.
Oh, okay.
And I'm gonna be honest, Omega made me a man. Made me a man. I was a boy. If you had, I would say I was a boy. And Omega made me a man. Omega gave me a chance to be a leader on another front.
Right, and that's where the growth came. Huh?
That's where the growth came from.
Okay.
My whole emphasis in life is and has been youth in my later professional life.
Right. Now, speaking of that, for last words, what advice would you give, or what insight would you give to a young brother, either one that's interested or recently crossed? They want to know, you know, how to navigate the fraternity, or what wisdom might you impart on them?
If you want to join Omega Psi Phi, you need to join for the right reasons. The right reasons are there is work to be done. There is work to be done. You know, make sure that you get it in there for the right reasons. Voter registration, one of the most important things that we could work with. Seeking scholarships, guiding other young people through a process of life. There is nothing in this world more important to me in my life than youth, and assisting youth, helping youth, working in the community. I work through the Kiwanis Club, which is a social organization, through Omega Psi Phi, you know, and through other community projects, delivering clothing and toiletries to the homeless on a consistent basis. I probably deliver 10 or 12 large bags of clothing to the homeless 3 or 4 times a week. Wow. And I've been doing it for years, and I will continue to do it until the last day. You're watching oracleonline.org. If there are young people out there watching, young people, keep your heads high. Set your goals high. Know what you want to do. Know what you want to be. Know what kind of life you want to live. Because if you know that life, you will live that life.